moving into the nursing facility, she entrusted the urn to me. I could have kept it securely stored here in the office. That's what we usually do. But I took it home and put it on a shelf in my living room. It certainly didn't go with the decor, but I don't entertain much anyway, so it didn't matter. Actually, the professor and I have become friends. I enjoyed seeing it on the shelf. We've become friends, so to speak.
Can you review the codicil for us before we settle this issue? It's definitely confusing.
Yes, of course. From a legal standpoint, it's entirely straightforward and binding. And there was no question about Julia's mental competence. But Julia was disinclined to explain her reasons. Quite simply, the two of you, as a single legal entity, must choose to receive either the urn or the Chagall lithograph. If you choose the urn, I'm directed to arrange for the sale of the Chagall, with the proceeds going to the United Fund. If you choose the Chagall, the urn, quote, must be immediately disposed of as trash, unquote. This is disturbing, but entirely legal in New York State. Julia was pleasant, as she always was, but she was very definite. I wish I could tell you more. Speaking only from a personal perspective, and especially as I've been keeping the urn myself, I'll be much happier if you choose the urn, the professor. But of course, giving up the Chagall would not be an entirely rational course of action. Sandra, you say that Julia, that Nick, never told you anything about the urn, not even how they came by it?
It was just there, the professor, on a shelf in the living room. It seemed important, but I never knew why they had it, how they never explained it. Perhaps it's the ashes of some distant relative, someone they didn't know by name, but they only knew that the person was a professor of something somewhere. Just once I did press Mom about this, and all she said was, some things in life you need to learn for yourself. But how can we learn something from this?
You can see how unfortunate the situation is. We either have a beautiful Chagall lithograph we're reluctant to give up, but we can't just ditch the urn. Of course, I'll follow Sandra's lead on this.
I think we have to take the urn because it seems disrespectful to put any human remains in the trash. And there was clearly some kind of relationship between the professor and my parents.
Yes, I guess we'll keep the urn. We'll put it on a shelf just like Nick and Julia did. But obviously, it would be a lot nicer to display the Chagall lithograph.
I know, Sam, but somehow the professor just seems to belong to us. Maybe he was a distant relative, maybe not, but I know he is ours.
But maybe Mark Chagall is a distant relative. That would be a reason to pass on the professor. Keep the Chagall in our living room. Just joking, Sandy.
Speaking again as a friend rather than as your attorney, I can't help but think that there's some kind of wisdom behind your mother's directive. Julia was always an insightful woman.
And she and Nick raised an insightful daughter. So I'm good with this.
Okay, we've reached a decision. So first, I'll ask each of you to please sign and initial the codicil. Fortunately, even without the Chagall, the estate is substantial. I think that the codicil was Julia's way to make clear that there's something special about that urn. Perhaps giving up the Chagall was a kind of a test, which you passed. I guess I need my own little goodbye moment with the professor. You know, sitting alone with him in my condo. We used to chat once in a while. Well, the professor is yours now.
Thank you. Thank you for everything, especially how you handled my mother's affairs after my father's death. Been a really good friend of the family for a long time.
You've been a very good daughter, very good son-in-law. Julia got a great deal of pleasure from you.
Julia, I had no idea we'd come out on Mount Hope Avenue by the cemetery.
Me either.
It's a big cemetery.
Yeah. So old and beautiful and historic. It's sort of amazing that we're finishing up 4 years of college with the cemetery right next to the campus, and we've never walked through it.
Well, everyone knows it's here, but it's not like, hey, you gotta go to the cemetery. Everybody has lots to do and think about.
Too bad we never did find Frederick Douglass's grave. He's buried somewhere in there.
Hey, Julia, what's that?
Sort of a little gingerbread house, like the witch's cottage in Hansel and Gretel. Think it's part of the cemetery?
I don't know, I guess so. That chimney is pretty damn tall for a little gingerbread house. The witch in that cottage must cook up a lot of children. Let's take a closer look.
I could just leave it be and head back to campus. It's been a long walk.
Oh, come on. The door's open. Well, careful.
That does not qualify as an invitation. This does not look like a place that expects visitors.
Oh, let's do it. You only live once.
Well, you came through the door, you might as well come all the way in. Do you know what kind of building you're in?
I think that smokestack kind of gives it away. This must be a crematorium.
That's right. Belongs to Mount Hope Cemetery. I've been here for 35 years. See that? What do you suppose that is?
The oven? Far out.
That's right, I did a burn this morning. You might have smelled a little smoke as you walked down the path.
Wow, a bird. Too bad we missed that.
Oh, if a burn had been in progress, I would not have admitted you. I keep the door open for a little cool air, but out of respect for the deceased, I would not have allowed strangers just to wander in. You understand?
Yes, of course we do. This is a very picturesque building. Beautiful tiles embedded in the brickwork. Sort of European, Swiss, or something like that.
This crematorium is over 100 years old. It was built during the Civil War. A lot of young men were cremated right here. Their bodies were brought here from Gettysburg, Shiloh, Chancellorsville, places like that, all those places. A lot of grief when a young man dies. We have one of the very last coal-fired ovens. Now they're all gas-fired, much cheaper and cleaner. We'll be shutting down in about 9 months. There'll be a new crematorium opening off-site. Much bigger than this place. So if you wanted to see this place, you're lucky you didn't wait too much longer.
That's an urn. Is that where you put the person you wrote this morning?
Oh no, that's the professor. No one even makes urns like that one anymore. Long ago, the professor was a faculty member at the university. He specified in his will cremation, but no family member ever claimed his body. So he's been here, waiting, you might say. He was here when I was hired, We don't even know his name. All I know about the professor was what my predecessor in this job told me, and that wasn't much. The county keeps records of every death, but this particular urn sort of got separated from the death certificate and the cemetery's records. So, he's the professor. He's kept watch from that shelf for at least 50 years, and I'm his only friend. After all these years, I'm probably the only living soul who knows that he ever lived. You seem like a nice young couple. From the university? And that's an engagement ring, am I right? Would you like to have the professor?
What?
That's what I said. The professor would be yours, to have and to hold. If you're students at the university, then you have professors. Maybe you'd like to have this one.
You mean you just give us the urn? The professor, I mean.
Under the circumstances, I believe I would. I will retire when we close down, and I could take the professor with me. But I don't have many years left myself, so I'd still be facing the problem of seeing to his future, so to speak. After all these years, I hate to see someone just throw him into the trash. Someone who was cleaning out this building when it closes, or someone who was cleaning out my apartment when I'm gone. Someone who just sees a clay jar and has no interest in what it might be. I don't think the professor should go into the trash. You're young. You're from the university. Take the professor, please.
Yes, absolutely. An urn full of human ashes. What could be cooler than that?
He's a person, not a conversation piece. And lady, do you understand what I'm saying?
I think I understand.
If you take the professor, it's a commitment. You keep him. Wherever you go, he goes with you. You can't just decide to get rid of him. Unless, of course, you find someone else who will show him the proper respect.
Yes, this is a significant decision.
Julia, maybe this isn't such a good idea. We're going to be moving around a lot these next few years. Maybe this thing is too much of a burden.
In a sense, he will be a burden, but you'd be showing respect for a man's life, not a person you knew, but a person nonetheless. You are truly all he has. At least that's how it will be after I'm gone.
Nick, burden or not, I think we need to take the professor. I want the professor. Sarah will take good care of him.
My name's John, and I'm very pleased. Young man, I spent most of my life with the professor looking down at me from that shelf. Trust me, the professor, if given a chance, he will be more than just a burden.
John, Nick and I will look after the professor just as you have done.
Hello, Julia. Hello, Nick.
Hello. It is very good to meet you.
Hello, sir. You addressed us by name. Do we know you?
Well, yes, in a manner of speaking. Also, you're holding my ashes. My name is Horace Smith. I was a professor in the English department for many years. That was a long time ago. I taught Shakespeare to thousands of young men and women, also John Milton. I was respected too. Students heeded my words carefully. Back in my day, we didn't just do literary analysis. We used great literature to help students think and feel with greater depth, expand their humanity. Julia, you showed great depth of understanding in the crematorium. Nick, you're a little behind Julia in that regard. You need to learn from her and from me. I will bring something to your marriage, to your lives, perhaps to your children. I can still enlarge the human spirit.
Thank you, Professor.
I'm very pleased that my ashes have been entrusted to you. I've been on that crematorium shelf for 59 years. I did everything I could for John, kept him from getting too lonely, lifted his spirits, gave him a broader outlook on life. He didn't have much of an upbringing, and he didn't have a reflective mind until he began taking long, slow gazes at me. I started him reading and thinking, which is the job of a professor. Living with a young couple like you, there will be new shelves for me to watch from, and more that I can do. There will be moments when there is something I want you to know, to understand. Will you heed me?
Yes.
Very good. Today feels like the first day of a new semester.